Hi, and welcome to the Handsell with Ron Hogan and Jessica Soffer. She is the author of Tomorrow There Will Be Apricots, which is just out from HMH. And welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
That's good. So one of the things I love about this book is the sections with Lorca that start things off and are one of the two main narrative tracks here. There's a lot of food talk in this, and in particular, part of the story is that she's trying to track down a particular dish that's very important to her mother. And I'd love to talk a little bit about kind of the Iraqi cuisine that clearly plays such an important role for you in this story.
Yeah, well, my father was an Iraqi Jew who emigrated from the U.S. roughly around the same time that the characters in the novel do. And his mother was a healer in Baghdad and believed in eating for one's well-being, eating for one's health. So I grew up with an interesting notion of food, and that it can do more than just sustain a person, that it's more than something that just goes in your mouth, but that it can really have sort of curative powers. And the Iraqi Jews believed in eating by color, eating bright colored foods to encourage happiness, and not eating black foods like the skin of an eggplant, because they believed that there was some kind of unhappiness that could be encouraged by eating those. So I just grew up with a kind of very strong awareness of food, and particularly Iraqi Jewish food, which I grew up eating, and that's where it started, really.
Yeah, and the particular dish that Lorca tries to recreate, mazgoof?
Yeah, it's called mazgoof, and it's, go ahead.
I was going to say, what's the best mazgoof you've ever had?
Well, I've never had it prepared at a restaurant before. I've only had it, we've made it ourselves actually in recent years, and it hasn't been something that I grew up eating. But I focused on it in part because it's the national dish of Iraq, and it's a very kind of nostalgic dish in that the fish was caught in the Tigris and Euphrates and grilled right on the banks there. And that very much can't be done anymore because there was a fatwa declared on those fish because of all the dead bodies, and because Baghdad just isn't what it used to be. And so it felt like a dish that had a lot more meaning than many other dishes that I could have chosen that could have just been cooked at whim and continue to be cooked today.
Great. Well, again, the book is Tomorrow There Will Be Apricots, and I hope you folks will check it out. And the way that the Handsell works is that people send me lists of books and authors that they've loved, and then authors or independent booksellers and I try to come up with other books that they might enjoy reading. Today's list comes from Virginia, and she came up with a list of authors that she likes that includes Marilynne Robinson, Paul Harding, Michael Ondaatje, Penelope Lively, and Edmund St. Aubyn. And she specified that she's into plot and fast pacing and a sense of humor, and she's okay with exploring foreign settings or historical settings. So that was a pretty wide range for us to come up with, and I'd love to hear about the first book that you selected for her.
Well, I found this list a little bit difficult to parse in that it's slightly bipolar. I think that the first three authors, Marilynne Robinson, Paul Harding, and Ondaatje, have much to do with one another. They're all very lyrical, all very cerebral. They're beautiful writers, each one of them in their own way. And then Edmund, St. Aubyn, Penelope Lively are much more kind of plot-driven and dark and humorous. And so I've based my recommendations on the assumption that we're going to look at the list in two separate parts. So for the first three, for Robinson, Harding, and Ondaatje, I recommend Thea Obreht's The Tiger's Wife. And I have it. And here it is. It's beautiful. The cover is gorgeous. And Thea is young. She's under 30, and it's an allegorical book set in a fictionalized province in the Balkans. It's very much about family, about loss, the tragedy of war, and I think it will sort of serve her kind of Virginia's lyrical craving, and also the kind of intellectual flavor that she's after.
Yeah, it's a wonderful story, and it was one of my favorite debut novels when it came out. It's just such a powerful, and it's got that what we were talking about in terms of a foreign setting as well. That and it digs into it and really makes us feel at home in this strange setting.
Yeah, she feels to me like the next Ondaatje for sure. So that's the first one. And then based on Penelope Lively and Edmund St. Aubyn, I recommend another Brit, Julian, who hasn't been funny really in recent years with good reason, but The Lemon Table is a collection of stories, and it's kind of a meditation on growing old, and it is funny and dark. And then I also recommend Peter Carey, who's not a Brit but has sort of British sensibilities. I think he's Australian, and he was my professor at Hunter, actually. And his novel, My Life as a Fake, is very funny, very entertaining. It's about kind of murder and espionage, and it's set in Kuala Lumpur, and it's just fabulous. I think she'll enjoy it.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, I am a fan of early Julian Barnes. I need to catch up with the later stuff, and that sounds like a good place to start catching up.
Yes.
And clearly I should be checking out the Peter Carey as well.
Yeah, Peter Carey's always a good time.
Now, what I tried to do with my selection is to bridge the gap that Jessica was talking about, and to pick something that was both lyrical and beautiful in its language, and had those sort of like arch, dark humor elements to it. And the book that I came up with is The Orphan Master's Son by Adam Johnson. And in a way, this is kind of an easy pick because it is, after all, the most recent Pulitzer Prize winner for fiction. But it's also just a really excellent novel. For those of you who aren't familiar with it yet, it's about a North Korean citizen named Jun Do, and the pun is intentional. And basically, it's about his life as he is recruited to become a kidnapper for the dictator. So basically, he is assigned to kidnap Japanese citizens that the North Korean government wants essentially to be on hand for their entertainment. And when a mission goes pretty badly, he ends up in a North Korean prison camp. And I know this isn't sounding very funny so far, but the way that he gets out of the prison camp and basically assumes this completely different identity is just really amazing. And the way that it builds up and the way that he tells these jokes and sort of gets into the propagandistic voice of North Korean propaganda, for lack of a better, it is such a powerful read, and it really gives you this powerful experience of what daily life must be like there. And as I say, I mean, it's a Pulitzer winner, so you know a lot of people have been recommending it before me, but I do encourage you to check it out. So there are 4 great books for Virginia, from Virginia to read, and we hope that you like some of those recommendations, Virginia, and the rest of you folks should check them out as well. Now, if you would like to have a recommendation made for you, go to thehandsell.com/ask and tell me about 3 to 5 books or authors that you enjoy, and then I will recruit an author or perhaps an independent bookseller, and we will see what we can come up with for you to read. So here at Community Bookstore in Park Slope, I'm Ron Hogan. This is Jessica Soffer. Her book is Tomorrow There Will Be Apricots, and this has been the Handsell. Thanks.